Yeah.
So we're recorded. So everything you just said to me, I won't tell anyone. Don't worry. Everything from now on is on the record.
No problem.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So there's everyone popping in.
People in here.
So this is the bit where we creep on everyone's living rooms.
Yeah. And to get a cool fancy background like yours.
Yeah, well, this is a picture we took last year of the bar in Killarney, so it's authentic, if not real.
Yeah.
So,
I have a bar here in Los Angeles too. I think that's what I need to do. I need to.
Yeah, well, you've got the perfect background.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the perfect
my wall
background
looks
for it.
pretty empty.
No, it is. Well, folks, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to give it a minute, folks. That's why we're just kind of bantering here. It's going to give a second for everyone to come on and get settled in. So apologies. We're a couple of minutes past the hour and starting there, guys. So in about 30 seconds, we'll formally start. Just so that everyone doesn't think we're just rude and having a conversation while you're watching in. Misa, do you want to while we're waiting for everyone to get ready, do you want to give us the lineup or the order we're going to go in? Because I know a lot of our guests like to have it all lined up and ready to go.
Yeah. So let me just double check what you guys have at hand, and then we'll. So for sure, we're gonna start off with our espadín right here.
Perfect.
There you go. So we're gonna start off with that our espadín, which is like our flagship table, kind of like our table mezcal that everyone can get their hands on. We're also going to be doing our reposado, which is an espadín as well, but this one is an aged mezcal. And then what else do we have here? We are going to be doing the toala, which is right here, the green bottle, the Mexicano, and the Salmiana. So these are good. So you're gonna have, there we go, the Mexicano and then the Salmiana, right there. Awesome. So we have a bunch of good SKUs with you guys. We actually don't do a lot of tastings with the Salmiana and the Mexicano yet, just because those are just starting to get out into the market. We'll go that way. But for the most part, what we focus on is our espadín and our reposado. So those are available pretty much everywhere.
So we're going to start with, I'm just going to type that into the group chat. So we're going to start with the espadín, and then we're going on to the reposado.
Correct.
And then we are going to the tobala, is it?
Yeah, the tobala.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to butcher these pronunciations, but the Mexicano next, did you say?
Correct, the Mexicano, and then the Salmiana.
And then the Salmana.
And then correct me if that is what you guys have. That's what I have in the email. So
yeah, and then we have the Cerudo as well, or CE or UDO.
Cerudo. Okay.
Cerudo. So is that, are we going to finish on that one?
We'll finish on that one for sure.
Perfect. Marvelous. So now that order's in the chat, I may as well get going. So for everyone who's joining us for the first time, my name's Luke. I'm the general manager of the Celtic Whiskey Bar and Larder and Irish Whiskey Experience down in Killarney. We have the world's largest collection of Irish whiskey. We're one of the largest whiskey bars in the world with over 1,500 whiskies, a lovely bespoke cocktail menu, all craft beer, a fantastic restaurant, and obviously the Irish Whiskey Experience, which is you come in and learn all about how to taste Irish whiskey and all the different elements to it. And we also kind of enjoy craft and bespoke spirits, as I'm sure a lot of you on the chat who've joined us before know. We've done cognac tastings, Calvados tastings, rum tastings, and we've done tequila, and we did one mezcal before, and now we're delighted to be bringing you another mezcal, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Misa here. Misa, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and introduce us to the lineup that we're going to be doing tonight? And before you do that, sorry, I always forget this at the start, but for those of you who are joining us the first time as well, we want to hear your questions and your your tasting notes, get them in the chat, be active. We want to hear from you. From now on, from this moment on, after I finish this bit of a spiel, what I'm just here to convey what you're kind of saying in the chat. So now, without further ado, take it away.
Let me just grab a cup because I'm gonna taste with you guys as well.
Marvelous. Are you drinking out of a cup, a glass, or a copita?
I'll be doing a copita. So this is the traditional. This is the traditional glassware that you would normally drink mezcal out of. There's a cross at the bottom of it. These are actually candle holders for that church. Yes, correct. Raza de la Hora. So you guys feel free to pour yourself the espadín if that's what you have available. And as we chat, we'll kind of go through it. Pour it, let it open up a bit, let it breathe. Kind of the same way you would drink, a good scotch or a good, wine. You let them open up. So just a little bit about myself. So my name is Misael Villa. I am the national brand ambassador for Mezcal Los Javis. The way I came about the company is very, very organic. The same way the company has grown, our team is a very organic team that we've just grown kind of over the years as friends that we just kind of became part of this project. I met Jaime, which is the owner of the brand, probably about 10 years ago. We became really good friends. I used to bartend back then, and over the years, that friendship just became into like, hey, would you like to be part of this project? And I was like, of course. Like we're already doing this every day. We're hanging out, we're drinking mezcal, we're going to bars, we're selling it without us even knowing we're selling it. I was like, let's just do it. So that's how I became involved with this brand. As far as the brand goes, it is called Mezcal Los Javis because there's 3 generations of Javier's. There's Javier Senior, his son, and then now Javier Junior's son, which is he's 18 now, so he's the new generation of mezcaleros that's coming. The brand grew kind of out of necessity. The families produced mezcal for years, and they produced mezcal for multiple different brands. And it got to a point where it was like, well, we're making mezcal for everyone. How about we make mezcal the way we think it needs to, taste? Let's make our own version of what mezcal should taste. Javier and Jaime were out in Los Angeles. They were working behind the bar. One of them had to go back to Mexico to start the production of Mezcal Los Javis, and Javier decided to go back. It wasn't so much, they were already producing mezcal. The whole point of the brand was going back to Mexico to sophisticate the production of mezcal. You gotta understand that mezcal used to be a spirit that would just be made, for special occasions or for, very small production. So people would use whatever they had available to them, like back in the day, some of them would even cook the agaves by burning tires, So this was just after seeing how the wine industry operates and how they look at everything as a high quality that needs to be put into the wine production. The same idea went back to Mexico. Like, let's sophisticate our production. Let's make sure that we're using the best, the best wood we can find, the best tubs, the best stainless steel, everything just better. And then that's when the brand got kicked off. I don't want to bore you with a bunch of stuff. We'll talk about it as we go, but you are having the espadín. Our espadín is a 8 to 10 year agave. By 8 to 10 year, what I mean is that's how long it takes for it to mature. It's our biggest selling mezcal. The reason why, because espadín is a very common agave. It's the most, the most cultivated agave out in Oaxaca. We are coming out of Mexico in Oaxaca, Santiago Matatlan. Please feel free to pour it, smell it, take a sip. This one is going to be very green, very vegetal. With mezcal, you're gonna get that little hint of smokiness. I know that some of them can be a little bit, as we go through the line, you'll see how some of them can be a little smokier, and I'll let you know why they get smokier. Mezcal is gonna, artisanal mezcal is going to have always those hints of smoke because of the way it's cooked. So you know, there's a saying that goes, you don't shoot mezcal, you kiss mezcal. So besitos de mezcal, you kind of just sip on it little by little. With tequila, we've gotten, used to like any kind of agave spirit, you just shoot it back, you lime salt right away, you hide the flavors. With mezcal, we like to sip on it, we like to make sure that we can understand exactly what we're drinking. So cheers. A little bit about more about the family. The reason why we decided on growing the project to what it is now. There's not a whole lot of jobs out in Oaxaca and just in Mexico at that. So what we wanted to do is grow the production to be big enough so that we can employ the people of our town. And with that, what that did for us, it created the ABV. ABV on this one is going to be, I don't know which one you guys have, but this one's 41.52%. And that can fluctuate, by like 0.50 at a time.
I think the one we had was 40.64 or something like that.
Yeah.
In a similar range.
The ABVs on the mezcales are not gonna be like tequila where they're always 40 or 50 or whatever the case is. It's always going to fluctuate by about a percent. The way we gauge the alcohol percentage is very old school, very artisanal. There's a little bowl called a jicara, and the mezcalero will pull the mezcal with it's like a flute. They let it hit this jicara, which is like a bowl, and then depending on how many on the little bubbles that they create, which we call pearls, depending on how big they are and how fast they go away, that's how we gauge the alcohol beverage content from it. So it's still very, very old school the way we do it, but it's pretty accurate. We're usually only off by about a percentage. So if anyone ever is ever like it's gonna be accurate all the time, it's not. It's an artisanal product, so it fluctuates, And as far as Espadin goes, this is kind of our flagship. This is the one that we consider our table wine. So the one that you always have at home, one that you can give your friends, and it won't break the bank. But this was the one that we were like, what are we gonna drink on a regular basis? And this is it. The what you're having right now, Espadin, is what we decided should be our table wine, table mezcal. For the fat, as far as the production goes, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the production of mezcal. The reason why you're getting these smoky notes is because the agaves are cooked in an underground pit lined with rocks, and then those rocks are lined with wood. In our case, we use mesquite and encino, and what that does is it heats up the rocks, and then we cover up those hot rocks with the agave, put some more wood, cover it up, and then we roast it for 4 days, 4 to 5 days, depends on the size of the agaves. So this roast is what's creating this smoky flavor that's coming to it. Now, depending on what wood we use, we can use pine, and that pine will actually make it smokier. But with us, we didn't want to bombard people with a smoke dome. What we wanted you to actually taste the agave, the actual profile of the agave, and then the smoke was just it's just part of the process, so you're gonna get it no matter what. You guys can go ahead, and if you've already sipped on that one, you can go ahead and move over to your reposado, which is that bottle right there. I know that you guys don't have labels, but the reposado is gonna be an aged espadín. And someone asked
Well,
would
we
it
have
be
a
served at room temperature or chilled. Honestly, like we like to drink it room temperature, but if you put the bottle in a refrigerator or freezer to cool it, there's nothing wrong with it, but we normally do drink it just to room temperature.
Because there's some great tasting notes in there. Tanya and Breen says there's a verdancy to it, a greenness to the nose, so salty in the palate with a hint of good dark chocolate and some licorice. We have some professional tasting note producers on here. You know, they're very articulate sometimes.
No, that's actually spot on right there.
They also asked about what wood used for smoking, and they compared the process to Fullocht Fia, which is I think an old kind of method for cooking in ancient Ireland. So if I'm probably wrong on that, but which is really interesting. So what you did mention the woods, but what woods were they?
We're using Encino and mesquite. So 80% Encino, 20% mesquite. The mesquite's what gives it that nice like kind of like apple like wood flavor. That dark chocolate licorice that was mentioned. That's what the Encino gives out, and then the rest is just literally used to cook. We want a wood that cooks at a high heat, so that it cooks up the agave. Those agaves before they're cooked, they're bitter. It's a bitter plant. You know, you eat it raw, it'll give you a horrible stomachache. But once it's cooked, all those acidities turn into sugars. And then if you ever get to experience tasting the cooked agave, it's kind of like eating sugar cane, but a roasted sugar cane. It's delicious. And those sugars right there are what we need to start making alcohol. Right,
Yeah, I think Oscar is from Mexico himself, if I'm not mistaken. He was on a couple of calls. So I don't know if that adds any relevance to the conversation.
So as far as the reposado, I don't know who already has it in their cup, their copita. So the reposado is aged 8 to 10 months. Yes, Viva Mexico. It is aged 8 to 10 months in repurposed bourbon barrels. So in this batch that you guys are having as well, it's actually repurposed wild turkey barrels. I know that mezcal is very new in a lot of markets. Here in Los Angeles, it's the hottest thing. If you don't have a mezcal cocktail or mezcal list, you're kind of stuck 10 years behind already. But
we definitely have one in Clarny, so we're 10 years ahead, you know.
Hopefully, the whole world catches up with the movement. As far as the reposado goes, you're gonna get a lot of those like bourbon notes. It's actually very beautiful. If you're new to mezcal, this is my favorite way to introduce people to mezcal, because we've all had whiskey, we've all had scotch, so we're very familiar with those notes. So our brain and our palate just connects two and two together, and it tells you like, oh, this is good. You've had this before. So you get some of those woody notes, those nice vanilla, molasses, and sweet notes that get from the barrel, but you're still getting a little bit of that greenness in the back end of it. With mezcal, I always try to tell people or explain it to people that aren't used to what it tastes like. The reason people, when they first start drinking mezcal, they might say, "Oh, I don't like it," or "It's not my cup of tea." The reason behind that is not so much because they don't like mezcal. It's. I always tell people, think about the first time you had your first beer, or your first shot of tequila, whatever it is. You never, when you're like 12 years old and you took a sip of beer, you weren't like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing ever! I can't wait to drink 20 cans of this." It was your palate just didn't know what it was having. And it took time to accustom your palate to say, oh, I recognize this as something I enjoy. It's the same thing with mezcal. If you've never had it and you're new to it, your palate isn't used to what it's having. And the more you drink it, the more your palate becomes accustomed to the different flavors it has. So in small, and to make a long story short, you guys need to drink more mezcal.
Well, they say that the Italians say that about Campari. You have to try it 5 times before you like it, and then after that you're hooked.
Definitely. You know what? It's funny because someone out in Sacramento made us a really nice. Oh my God, Negroni, Mezcal Negroni, and it worked out perfect. It worked out perfect with the reposado. Talking about two different things. But yeah, the reposado, you're gonna, yeah, if you guys got a sip of it, you see what I'm talking about, where the barrel really shines in it.
It's obviously reposado. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, it means rested, does it? Or
Correct.
So it's obviously you're resting it in the barrel. But when we and obviously when we do different tastings with different brands, everyone has their own take on what's the right thing and what's the wrong thing. It's the nature of the industry. But when we did our tequila and mezcal tasting before, we were told that barrel aging in mezcal was kind of not the done thing. And obviously in the tequila industry, it's a although it starts in the 19th century, it's really after the Second World War that it kind of takes off because they're trying to sell it to an American market that drinks aged spirits. And what was the kind of decision behind to do a reposado?
So we actually, I love to have this conversation with people because yes, and especially in LA, everyone's a mezcal expert out here. Everyone knows everything about mezcal. But you got to think about the reason why mezcal is seen as taboo is not because of the reason that people are making it seem. The reason mezcal wasn't aged before, you got to think about where mezcal is coming from. How did it all begin? 15, 20 years ago, you got to think about it. Some of these plants take 30 years to grow. So mezcaleros have been making this for way before some of us were born. And the mezcal market was nothing like what it is now. If anything, like a family would sell, a couple liters to the town or for some kind of a festival, they would sell some. But it was never in the volume that we're doing it now. And barrels are not cheap. So if you barely have enough money to feed your family, where are you going to get this extra money to start experimenting on aging mezcal? So it was never so much like, hey, we can't age it because it's taboo. It's like we can't age it because it's expensive. As our company grew, we were like, okay, let's invest in getting some barrels and let's experiment on how does mezcal taste when it's aged. As you can see, aged mezcal tastes completely different than an aged tequila. You get so many more flavors out of it. So to us, it was more of an experiment that, in my eyes, I see it as a home run. I think it worked out perfect. When we go to different markets, there's people that are very interested in just a joven espadín, joven being the clear one, and there's some people that need that, those how would you call it? Those training wheels. And they do use the reposado for that, where it's like, okay, well, let's ease into the mezcal little by little, and then, all right, now we're ready for an espadín or la la, and you'll see it as we go through all of these. You'll see how crazy the changes in every flavor, where you understand what I'm saying, that we need to slowly ease into the different ones.
No, it's really interesting. It's like a smoked apple flavor. It's got some really, and it's much more, obviously much more tannic than the first one. There's some really interesting comments in there. Tanya and Breen says the nose is such an elegant nose of wood and sandalwood. It's almost like a really great cologne. Silky on the palate. Wow. Salty praline on the very sophisticated palate. So impressed with this one. Marcus says mezcal Negronis are delicious, and Ian says Reposado Negroni going on Celtic Whiskey Bar and Larder's menu this summer. We actually have a mezcal old fashioned on the menu already, but it's with Montelibes. So maybe Los Javis is going to have to take over. We'll elbow a space for them on the menu as well, maybe in the form of a Negroni.
We always say in this industry, there's room for all of us.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Yeah. There was also another question there from I think it was Darren. I've lost it on the chat, but he asks, is there any other cocktails you'd recommend?
Oh, 100%. This is my favorite because you gotta understand, in LA it's usually pretty warm, so we love a refreshing cocktail. Diablo, but with mezcal. And if you guys don't know what a Diablo is, is lime juice, ginger beer. In this case, it would be mezcal and a float of creme de cassis. I prefer Jafar as the cassis to use. And for ginger beer, I like to get a really spicy ginger beer. And to me, definitely one of my favorite easy, refreshing cocktails to do. And they're just so easy to do at home, honestly. Like, not everyone has the access to a full bar where you can experiment with syrups and everything else. So, just something that you can do at home. It's got to take on a Diablo.
Excellent. Oh, excellent tip. And Ian says mezcal palomas are also delicious. So
Always.
fantastic. And the answer to Tanya and Breen's question, which has been answered, but in case anyone else is wondering, is not reading the chat, this Reposado retails at €60 at Celtic Whiskey. And I'll just double check and 51 for the Espadine. So good values, I think, for what we're trying so far. There is a very interesting question coming in there, but maybe we might move on to the next mezcal first before we come to that one.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead and pour ourselves a little toala. And I know you guys don't have the bottles, but just so you guys can see the labels. This is the green one. Now that we're getting into the wild ones and the different names, again, we use the wine industry in a lot of senses to help people understand what mezcal is. As we move forward with the rest of them, the name changes not because of there's a different production process. The only reason they're changing is because of the plant. The same way you see a Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, a Chardonnay being called that because of the specific grape that's being used, we do the same thing. All mezcal does the same thing, but it's the only thing changing is the actual agave, the plant that we're using. Toala is a plant that grows really high up in the mountains. So you gotta understand that in Oaxaca there's a lot of microclimates. So with the toala, since it grows higher in the guidance, it either gets a lot of sun or it gets a lot of moisture. It is a smaller agave. When we were doing this budding, these are big agaves. The reason we use those, it's one of the biggest agaves. It's easy to cultivate. We have a ton of it. And that actually will go back to the question that's on there about that. And with the bigger agaves, we're able to produce more. With the toala, they're the size of a basketball. Once you cut the leaves off, these are very small agaves. So with them being smaller, in the cooking process, since they are smaller, more smoke penetrates them. So you're gonna get this one to be a little bit smokier, a little more of a green spice, and kind of like a serrano, and very, very green on this one, very vegetable.
It's incredibly different than the first two. Like it's remarkably so.
Yeah, and like I said, the production stays the same the whole way throughout the whole line. The cooking process, the fermentation, everything is exactly the same. So as these change, nothing is changing but the plant. So all that flavor is strictly from the plant.
Even the smoke is almost like more of a charcoaly smoke than the kind of floral smoke of the first one. And it kind of catches the like oiliness in the back of the palate. It's really interesting.
And that charcoal is going to come a lot also from because it literally grows like on the hillside, so sometimes it's growing out of rock, so you're getting a lot of those mineral flavors to it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's because I mean they say in Scotch, you can kind of the different peated Scotches have this smokes to the untrained palate, it's all just smoky whiskey, but when you look a bit closer, it's more kind of iodine-y, it's more kind of charcoaly, it's more kind of floral, and you definitely notice that in the first few we've had here. The differences are really interesting. Nick in the chat says it's such an intense set of flavors, fizzes on the tongue, and I think fizzes on the tongue is a great description for it. Alan has, while maybe people sip away and want to add some more tasting notes in the chat in the meantime, Alan has an interesting question about the sustainability of the rapid growth in mezcal in terms of agave cultivation and as a result of its popularity. Could you maybe give us your thoughts on that?
Definitely. And then also Alan asked the question before that, why wild turkey? Just real quick to touch on that. Wild turkey just because that was what was available, but let's say if there's Knob Creek or any other kind of barrels and we want to use them, we'll use them. There's no specific reason why we chose wild turkey. It was just what was available. Now to the sustainability. It's great to be a pioneer. Everyone always sees you as an amazing person when you're a pioneer. But as a pioneer, you create a lot of mistakes. and the people that follow after you are the ones that learn from your mistakes. So in the agave world, we like to see tequila as a pioneer. They opened up the market for the agave spirits, but while doing that, they made a lot of mistakes. With that being that there was an agave shortage about 8 years ago. From those mistakes on what they did and what caused that shortage, we learned from it, and we've been planning to make sure that we don't run out of agaves. The way we're doing that, there's various ways, and I mean, just one simple way that a lot of the mezcaleros got together is this project called the BAT Project. If you guys aren't familiar with that, the BAT Project is pretty much uh, a project where you let enough agaves grow to full maturity. By full maturity, we mean that they shoot out a quiote. If you guys don't know what a quiote is, when agave grows, it grows a stalk right in the middle of it. And once it grows that stalk, it's when it reaches maturity. That stalk releases flowers, and those flowers then can release seeds. Bats, hummingbirds, they all need that stock to be able to pollinate it. They need it to live as well. So this project, it pretty much depending on the size of your operation, you let a certain amount of agaves grow to full maturity. So we make sure that we don't have this shortage that happened in the tequila world. As far as the wild agaves, we will. I know we will experiment a shortage of it with the wild agaves because they're wild. We don't have any control of them. That they just grow in nature at their own pace. So with us using them for mezcal, they're gonna run out for a while until they grow again. Some of these wild agaves take up to 30 years to grow. So we might not see them for like 15, 20 years, but they will be back. As far as espadingos, in our palenque, we have no problem with sustainability. We make sure that everything, it's an artisanal product. So it's not like we try really hard to be sustainable. It's just a byproduct of what we do. Sustainability is the way we've been making this stuff for decades. Um, Using the fibers for multiple things, using, making sure the agaves are growing, like rotating the fields. We have a lot of land, so we make sure that the land is rotated, yearly because we're producing this kind of whole year. We actually get that question a lot, especially with the growth of mezcal. They're like, how are we going to keep up with production? We've been storing mezcal for so long that we're literally just waiting for this big boom so we can get rid of all the mezcal we've been sitting on. So yeah, I mean, if you guys have on Instagram, look us up on Mezcal Los Javis. You'll see a lot of our production there. You'll see our fields. You see what I'm talking about. That it's not. One of the biggest differences is that we're not an industrialized product. So we're not just chopping away, taking from the land. We know this land is what feeds us, so we make sure that we rotate all the crops all the time, and we're constantly growing agaves.
It's interesting you mentioned at the start there pioneers, because in Ireland the pioneer is someone who's dedicated their life to not drinking alcohol. So it's quite the contrast. We hate pioneers in the bar industry here.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
I don't know why they say that. Maybe someone in the chat knows that, but that's as in why they say pioneers. But if you pledge to be a pioneer when you're a younger person, it means you're giving up the drink. You're not drinking anymore.
That's awesome. You learn something new every day.
There you go. We've got some great tasting notes coming in there. Nick says such an intense set of flavors that we said that fizzes on tongue. Sherbert says Ian, salted licorice with a subtle wood smoke. That's very true. That's a great one. Such a powerful scent taste of Pritchicor. Oh, the scent after rain upon sun-baked stone. They've got the thesaurus out anyway in that in that household. And Alan says thanks for the detailed answer. No, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and then also someone, Oscar, is asking about if the mezcales are farmed. Mm-hmm. Our espadín is farmed. Our espadín is a farm cultivated agave. That's the one that we have control over. That's the one that we produce, tons of liters of it. As far as right now, with the ones we started getting into, starting with the Dola, these are going to be wild. So these are going to be full wild agaves, and then our last one is going to be a semi-wild agave.
Yeah, interesting. Semi-wild. That's what my parents used to say I was.
Mezcal makes us poetic, doesn't it all?
It does. I was going to say.
Wait till you get to the last one. So here we'll move on to our Mexicano. Just this guy right here.
Perfect. So maybe, I mean, maybe once we've tasted this, actually, because my next question was going to be about the bottle. It's a gorgeous design. It's very different. What's inspired that? Maybe while we're getting this one poured.
Yeah, I'm actually very, very happy that we're doing this one because we don't even have this one in the States yet. We have it in Oaxaca, but we haven't entered this SKU into the States yet. So anytime we taste these, I'm very excited. The bottle design was actually very thought out. Again, with Javi and his brother Jaime being bartenders out in the States, there's a lot of things that went into the design of the bottle. When the first bottle came out, it was a very, and they hate when I say this, but the bottle was not the prettiest. It looked like a very cheap bottle. When I met Jaime, it's funny, when I met Jaime, he sat at my bar, he ordered a beer, he's like, hey, do you like mezcal? He knew I was a buyer. And I was like, I'm not into that mezcal that much, but I drink. So he poured me some, takes out the bottle, I tasted it, I was like, this is amazing. I was like, yes, I'll pick this up. But I told him, I was like, but that bottle's gotta go. Like that bottle is just, it's not gonna look pretty behind the bar. Again, this kind of came out of necessity. So they just rushed to put a bottle together. And the first one, if you guys look up Los Javis, you might be able to find a picture of the old one and you'll see what I'm talking about. But the bottle once this bottle came into play, all the factors behind the bar actually came into, and again, going back to sustainability, it works into the bottle as well. The bottle was designed to be behind the bar, to be held by a bartender. If any of you have ever worked at a bar, you know that if you have a short, chubby bottle or a wide bottle and you're trying to pour, it doesn't work out the best sometimes. Or if the mouth is too wide and you pour too much, the bottle design has a lot to do with all that. So we wanted to make sure we designed a neck that you can hold, that you can pour, the perfect size for a speed pour, and then it's thick. The glass is really, really thick. So these things can take a beating behind the bar. And we also made it so that all the labels can be taken off and you can reuse these bottles for water or whatever you like. So like in my bar, I use these for water. I put 20 of these bottles in the fridge, and when someone wants water, we give them a bottle of water. It's a pretty bottle, it looks good. And then here in the house, I use them as oil and vinegar holders. So the whole point was let's not let a beautiful bottle go to waste. Let's give it so that people can reuse it, repurpose it for something else.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So again, like we think about how we can reuse everything. It's in the nature of mezcal. That's why it's not that hard. It's not that hard to be sustainable because you gotta understand what mezcal is, where it's coming from, and who's making it. So this one is a Mexicano, very similar to the Espadín family, big agave. And then also as we go into the wild ones, the proof is going to be higher. I don't know what the proof is on the one you have, but this one is that I have at home is 47.28 compared to the 41.52 that we started with this. This is where things start to get fun.
It's much more kind of I get kind of a lot more wet stone and kind of clay notes on the nose. Personally, I don't know. I have a terrible palate, so don't take my word for it.
That's just beautiful right there. That I haven't had that in a very long time. Yeah, you get that like wet dirt right away.
Like earthy,
wet dirt, wet rock. Like if you just went outside and it rained, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It's really sweet on the finish. It's unexpectedly compared to the first few. Like it's very interesting. It's almost like a kind of a sour kind of gummy, but ones that are kind of sold as sour gummies, but are more sweet than sour. You take the pack and you think it's going to be tangy, and it doesn't quite hit.
And the nose is great too. Let me grab a glass of water real quick.
Do. It's good to stay hydrated. Nick says soft at the start and builds to the end. I think that's a good description. As I say, Ian's description of earthy is great. There was a question Marcus was saying there about the size of the batch on the wild agave. How much kind of batches do you produce the wild agave in?
For the bottles, it depends on again, wild agaves, we don't decide how much is available. The way the wild agaves work is if they don't grow in our land, we have to buy from the community. The way we buy from the community, again, since we make sure we do everyone right and we make sure everyone's okay, we actually get first dibs on the agaves that are available, which is great. And then not only that, we pay double what they're asking for just so that they know, like, hey, we're not here so much just to take the agave. We want to make sure everyone's taken care of. With how much we buy, the community decides how much there is available. You know, if every year they're like, hey, we got like 2 tons of agaves or 10 tons, like that's not for us to decide, that's for the community to decide. Because whoever's growing Mexicano, whatever they have available, they'll all bring it, you know, and then they sell it. So every year can be different. This batch, I think pretty sure we're having the same batch. This one, only 780 bottles were produced in 2018. Oh. So the bottle that I have here with me is number 241. And then for our Espadín, which is our flagship, our day-to-day drinker, this one we're making about 4,800 bottles per year.
I mean, so even 4,800 isn't that much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we produce we produce that much, but we can produce more. But right now, just the demand is not as high as we want it to be. But every lot's going to be different. For the Mexicano, for sure, though, once you go into the wild agave, it's super limited. The Toala's a little more common. So that one, I've seen the production go up to even 1,400 bottles, almost double the Mexicano. But yeah, once you get into the wild agaves, it's something special, you know, because what you're having right now, you're probably not going to have it again. Not because it's going to run out next year, but because the 2019 batch can be completely different, you know. Climate, weather, terroir, everything changes. So all that comes into play with the flavors as well. Depending on how dry the season is, how wet the season is, all that is going to change the flavor on it. So what you're having today in 2018 is going to be completely different from what you're having in 2019.
No, fantastic. Tanya and Breen are back with another few great tasting notes. They said, this is fantastic. Palate is delicious combination of char grilled pineapple, fish sauce, and a bit of coriander. So, and a few drops of water really opens it up. That's interesting. Would you recommend adding drop water to the mezcal, or I know that's a done thing.
I know that's a common thing with Scotch. We normally don't. We literally just sip on it and eat. But again, there's no right way to drink. I'll tell you that. You know, because you got to drink the way you like to drink. You know, for us, like putting a wild agave into a cocktail just doesn't make any sense. But then again, there's people that make 1942 margaritas, but who are we to judge? You know, if that's the way you want to drink, that's the way you want to drink. I understand about dropping some water to let it open up, but honestly, you can take a sip just to get the full intense flavor, and then if you let it, and people are like, well, I don't want to wait. I always tell this, but if you let that cup sit for 10 minutes and let the alcohol vapors, you know, evaporate out, you will get the full flavor of the actual plant and not that alcohol burn that you get. Also, when you're drinking, if you breathe out after you drink it and release those vapors, it opens up the palate a lot more as well.
And what's your opinion on the clay capitas? Would you recommend? I mean, like for someone over here drinking mezcal way away from Mexico or the west coast of America, would you recommend we stick to glassware, or do you think the clay gives something to it?
I honestly, we don't use any of the clay stuff. I mean, you could, but we just don't because it's porous. So when you pour a mezcal in it, since it's a porous product, it'll soak up some of the mezcal. So we don't want to be cheated from our mezcal. We want to have the whole thing. It's definitely for a bar setting or at home. it's definitely, a good idea. I mean, when I have company over, I serve it to them in tomato pitas, just so they can feel like, oh, it's a little more authentic. But honestly, like to us, this is the traditional way to drink mezcal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a gimmick for rich out of touch white folks. What you're saying, it's
Right, right.
yeah, I
And
feel
I
that.
mean, over there, like you'll drink it out of jicaras. If you guys don't know what jicaras are, it's like a fruit that you dry out, and then it makes bowls. You can even make canteens out of it. But those little bowls are what we would sip on as well. But again, it's porous as well. So we always just try to get our copita and make sure we have it with us at all times. I carry it around my waist.
Desmond says in the chat there, would you consider finishing mezcal in stout barrels and selling it to Irish Americans? They'd love it.
That is not a bad idea. That is actually not a bad idea. We might do that at some point. I mean, we've experimented with a lot of things. We've even made beer with mezcal in it. Back in Oaxaca, we have a ton of bottles that are just that they're just mixed with all kinds of different agaves. So we're experimenting all the time, and then that's the fun part. It's like a madman scientist lab down there where there's just so many mixes. If you guys ever want to go to Oaxaca, like definitely, you guys can definitely reach out to me, and I'll make sure you guys are set up there somehow. But you can see the thought process of Jaime and Javi over there. We're not done experimenting. I mean, we haven't even released the whole line of what we have. We have an añejo that's still aging. It's like I think it's 10 years now, and we're not gonna pull it yet. So there's so much still in the works. Someone asked about a pechuga earlier. We have a pechuga as well. We already have it. We're just waiting. We're waiting for the market to be ready. Like I mean, I don't know how familiar anyone here is with the movie Back to the Future, but I always tell this to people when I introduce mezcal, and they're not about it. It's kind of like that scene from the movie where Marty McFly goes on his guitar solo, and everyone's like, "What the hell happened?" And he's like, "Oh, you're not ready for it, but your kids will." That's kind of what I feel with mezcal. You guys aren't ready yet, but you will. Don't worry about it.
No, that's a brilliant way of describing it. Desmond says you could call it San Patrico's or for the beer finished mezcal. And on that kind of barrel aging theme, Alan says, have you ever partnered up with a whiskey distilleries to give the barrel back after the mezcal's been aged in it, so they can have a mezcal finished whiskey? Is that something you might consider?
These are all good ideas. I mean, I'm actually gonna have to write these notes down because I see potential in all of these. We haven't thought about it. It's funny because with this pandemic, uh, it when it first started, when we realized it was a serious thing, it kind of hit us hard. Like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? What's gonna happen? Like, this is our livelihood. Um, and then we have 90 employees in Mexico, so we're like, what? Well, that's the one thing about it, is like we make sure our people are taken care of before anything. All our people in Mexico stayed employed, and if we didn't have work for them, we made sure they got their same paycheck. Just so that they knew that we were there for them, even in the bad times, because they're there for us in the good times. This pandemic with what it made us realize is that we're so busy just going, production, that we never actually had the time to slow down and then look at the bigger picture. What else can we do? And you got to think about it like kind of like when you have a piece of, like, let's say you're a woodcutter and you're sawing away all day, and then they tell you, hey, take a break, and you're like, no, I have to. If I stop, I'm not gonna make money. And they're like, but your saw has no more blades, so it's taking you more work to cut that wood. When if you take a break, sharpen up your saw, you'll be a lot more productive. So that this pandemic kind of did that to us, where it made us reflect, like, okay, we need to pause and make sure we're doing things efficiently. And a lot of good ideas came off from it. Someone asked about food pairing. Food pairing, it depends what mezcal you're having. With our espadín, it's good with anything, honestly. But let's say if you're having something like the tola, I would definitely recommend something like a fish dish, anything more like with like a lemon sauce, a fish. When you go into like a Mexicano, that's a little more earthier, like a good piece of meat, a good steak, would definitely go good with it. But in all honesty, mezcal goes good. It goes good with cereal.
Mm. Oh, excellent. Alan says JJ Corrie, the battalion is finished in mezcal barrels. I think the Armada is finished in tequila barrels, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe I'm wrong on that one. It's another whiskey that by the same company. So that's an interesting one. No, will we come on to the? I'm kind of, my glass is empty, so that's why I kind of
That's
zoned out
good.
there for a minute because I was dreaming
So,
of the next mezcal.
and honestly, thank you for the questions. It's making this got to be my favorite tasting I've done on Zoom because everyone is very interactive with it. I love it. Um, we're gonna do the Salmero now. This is a very this we've only introduced this mezcal to the U.S. market once at a big event, and it is the easiest way that I can describe it. It's a very sensual mezcal, very aromatic, very sensual. It was definitely a hit with everyone that drank it. It's also like $100 bottle and change, so that's probably why. Yeah, right off
it's
the
got amazing,
bat.
like it's got almost like jalapeno nose to it, like, it's really kind of spicy.
And the nose and the flavor are completely different on this one. This is gonna be one where the nose and the feel of it are completely different. You're gonna get it's a lot more sensual. This is the easiest way I can describe it.
Wow, there's something very familiar there on the palate, and I can't quite put my finger on it.
God,
Almost
that
like
is just
a candy floss honeycomb.
that one is
I don't know.
just definitely hands down one of my favorite.
Mm. I thought for a second there you picked up the bottle. Like it's obviously your water. I thought you were going straight forward.
If it was 8 p.m. here, the way it's over there, that would have been the bottle.
Well, Alan says tastes like Turkish delight, and that's I think that is. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Alan. That's a fantastic tasting note. Hector says this one is amazing.
What's
It
Turkish
really is.
delight?
Turkish delight is like a jelly candy that's in like a white powder icing sugar that you get over here. It's a very old school traditional type of sweet that isn't as common as it used to be, but it's an interesting one. Those who
So
know, you know.
what's the proof on the
Um,
one that you guys are having?
I'm actually not sure. I don't know if Ian can enlighten us. I don't have the bottle with me. Rose flavored, says Eugene, which is for the Turkish delight. Tanya says Turkish delight is a gelatine or gelatin sweet made with rose water. So there you go.
Yes.
47.93% says.
All right,
We
so
call
we're
it
having the
48%
same
easy.
one. So we're having the same one. So the one you're having is actually a batch from 2016. And it's so easy to tell which one we're having just by the percentage because it's never going to be the same. So if we're having the same percentage, then we're having the same batch. Marcus, yours says 72 bottles total because the ones you have were samples of this lot of this batch. That's why you were saying 72 total. The total amount of bottles were 780.
Yeah, so a lot more than 72, but not that much in the grand scheme of things. This is actually absolutely stunning. Tanya and Breen says Alan is spot on, so spot on. The palate is the most fascinating synthesis of rose water and salt. So it's absolutely stunning. This might be one of the nicest things we've tried in ages. Ian uses very articulate amaze balls. So yeah, it's stunning.
Yeah, no, like I said, when I saw the 7 on the lineup, I was like, oh, this is what's gonna blow you guys out. This is, they're from when you go through the whole line, it's just completely different. Our last one here, which is very sad because this was actually a very fun tasting, is going to be our Cerrudo. So our Cerrudo is going to be, our Cerrudo is going to be one of those semi-wild agaves. the funny story about why it's semi-wild. This field, the one that was made for the Cerro, was actually we planted these agaves in 1990. In 1990, these agaves were planted, and they're very pretty much identical to our main one, which is our Espadín. Super identical agaves. We planted them and then at the 10-year mark, we went to check on them. We realized it was nowhere near ready. After examining the agave a little further, we realized that it wasn't an Espadín, it was a Cerrudo. So at that point, we knew that this agave was going to take 15 years to grow. So at the 10-year mark, we stopped taking care of it and we just let it do its thing, which is why it's a semi-cultivated, semi-wild agave, because it grew 10 years under our watch and 15 years wild without our help of it. This one right here is gonna be a little more of like a lemon zest, like a lemon rind flavor to it. A little more mineral and herbaceous. Kind of very similar in a way to the Mexicano.
This is yeah, it's got an extraordinary nose. Lemon meringue is a great descriptor for it. It's really fresh. It's a big creamy mouthful, says Marcus. Fair enough. I mean, I suppose it's past the watershed, so.
I'm still having this on, man. This is amazing.
Like a single malt, it does have a lot of whiskey element to it. Definitely. Stefan says, how does wild agave differ from cared for agave in regards to taste profile?
How does it differ? The land. It's the biggest thing is the land. When it's a cultivated agave, we're watching the land. We're feeding the land to make sure that it gives us the healthiest agaves. And when it's wild, it's wild. It's growing. I don't know if you guys have any kind of agaves out where you guys are at, but like here in Los Angeles, you see agaves growing on all kinds of hillsides. And no one put them there. That's where they grow, and then the flavor depends on that plot of land. Like some of them grow in a valley where it's really hot, really dry. Some of them grow higher in the hills where it's a little more humid, and they get into some of those notes that the agave will grab. And for the cultivator, we have a little bit of control. We know what we put in the land to we call it abono, to feed it and to give us the agaves that we need.
Ian says a lot of mango on the palate, and that's fantastic. That's one of those, we often say that whiskey tasting, when we're tasting whiskeys, is suggestive, and totally, now as soon as you said it, I can taste that mango, whereas I would never have picked that note out myself. So that's a brilliant one.
I'm gonna have to try it
now. I can't believe you weren't already.
I'm gonna have to cancel my 2 o'clock, my 3 o'clock.
It's a shame it's not Friday. We'd make a weekend of it.
Oh no, yeah. Even on the nose, you do get a little bit of the mango. It's not this is the first time I hear mango. But I don't know if Ian are you sipping from the same copita or whatever you're using, glassware? Because if you are, I don't know if it's a mix of the Salmiana and the Cerruda that give you that.
He's got loads of glasses. He's a rich man. He's fine. I'd say not the same glass. We'll see what he says. I can see him typing away. In the meantime, Tanya and Breen says very subtle, a lemon thyme salt rub. Ian says it was rinsed, but we know that's a lie because he hasn't moved from that laptop. So
That's funny.
He's got the Volvic water. He did rinse it out.
Yeah, this is the Cerrudo. It's a 25-year agave too. Like a lot of people don't understand. One big question that we have here again because of the American market. A good product is an aged product. That's the mentality in the American market. So when they see all our bottles, all the liquid is clear besides the reposado. All the liquids are clear. They ask us why why is it more expensive? You know, like when we go to the wild Javis, you're starting going to the 90 to $150 range. They ask why is it expensive if it's a clear product? It's what they don't realize is how long these agaves take to grow. You know, they grow anywhere from our espadín 8 to 10 years. Our toala is a 14-year agave. Mexicano, you're looking at about 15 years, and then your cerrudo, you're looking at about 25 to 30 years, depending on it. So that's what a lot of people forget. You know, a lot of the aging actually happens in the soil and over time.
So 25 years. That's extraordinary. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
this one was the Cerrudo, the one that we just had was like I said, we put it in the ground in 1990, and that bottle was batched in 2015.
And Ian says, and only 157 euros on Celtic for a 25-year-old agave. That's it's an absolute steal. I think anyone listening tonight who doesn't buy one of them is just
No.
has made wrong decisions somewhere in their life.
Mezcal is fun, you know, because mezcal is one of those things where, and it's not just our brand. You guys are going to be introduced to so many good brands out there as well. Like I said, there's room for everyone in this industry. So we never knock anyone. We always say like, look, there's people doing good mezcal as well out there. You know, it's actually one of the funnest things to collect. You know, everything has such a rustic story, a very genuine story. You know, I mean, one thing about us that we like that we're very proud of is that we tell our story. You know, like it's for you said you had a Del Maguey tasting, right?
Pardon?
You said you had a Del Maguey tasting.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the biggest differences is that you know Del Maguey is you know it's a bigger company and they're getting mezcal from different palenques. So you know that the reason why they have so many bottles is because they're working with so many different producers and buying you know mezcal from all of them and making a collection out of it with the Del Maguey brand. With us, all these bottles that you're tasting is literally all us, and then the same master mezcalero throughout the whole life. It's something that we're very proud of. You know that even when we buy wild agaves, we're not buying the juice. What we're buying is the plant, so we can make it ourselves. So that's why the master mezcalero on the bottles on the whole line is going to be Javier Matel. You know, one of the it's a little fun fact that we are very proud of. To know that everything's being done in our palenque and we're part of the process from beginning to end.
No, it's absolutely fantastic. This has definitely been one of my favorite tastings that we've done, and on the the kind of the theme of buying one from Celtic whiskey. I think once things we're only coming out of lockdown here in Ireland. Outdoor dining is allowed to reopen next month, and then you know hopefully we'll have bars reopened at some point. Some of our pubs have been closed for well over a year now at this stage. So that thing that we've all forgotten that used to happen was when you'd finish the pub at 1 o'clock in the morning and you'd stagger home and you'd invite your pals back to your house and you'd crack into your cupboard of beers and whiskies. Imagine how cool you're going to be if you have a bottle of mezcal up there. That's like, you know, that is serious brownie points.
And not only that, I mean the stories that you can tell, you know.
Exactly, that we've all learned tonight. No, that's true.
1 in the morning, though. At 1 in the morning, we're just getting the night started.
Exactly. No, that's very true. That's it. No, we'll have a great time. We must have you over. You must come and visit us and do a tasting in Dublin and Clarny at some point.
Oh no, definitely. I mean that's the goal for us to visit everyone. That's a fun part of this, you know. I mean, the traveling, the visiting, the getting to know everyone. It's all the fun part of the experience. You know, I gotta say that I chose the right industry to be in because you know the memories and stories we've created with this brand. It's just magical, you know. Like out here in the States, when they mention like, hey, Los Javis are coming over. like to whatever state, it's kind of like get ready because you're gonna have fun. We're not there with a sell sheet. We're there with bottles of mezcal. We always say we're selling mezcal. We're not selling chocolates.
Exactly. That's brilliant. Selling mezcal, not selling chocolates. That's probably one of my
So if
favorite
we're
lines from
coming,
any taste.
be ready.
No, 100%. Maybe come over for we were gonna do a Dublin drinks mixer, which is like a kind of a non-whiskey alcohol celebration in Dublin. I've absolutely butchered that because I'm six to mezcals in. But we, you need to come over and man the mezcal stand and give us all out
No,
the free
I'd love
samples.
to. Just
No,
let us know
100%.
when. Let us know when that's happening, and we're there. We never turn an invitation down. That's our problem. You invite us, and we're there. And even if you don't invite us, we're still there.
Fantastic. No, there's been some great comments and great feedback coming into the chat there. Vitaly says, thanks for a very interesting experience, guys. I'm Ukrainian, thus I'm mostly a vodka man, but I have to admit I really like mezcal. Even though it's stronger, it tastes a bit smoother, and it does have a different taste. Second time I'm trying mezcal, and I'm really enjoying it. So that's fantastic. And there's loads of fantastic comments. Ian Pepper says, I see you in LA. Barry says, that was great. So yeah, no, it's been, and Marcus says when we can fly again, Ian. So true. No, yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for the experience. And anyone listening in,
Marcus had a night with Los Javis and still recovering. That's hilarious. When was this? I'm pretty sure I was there.
we'll have to Jamie and Sergio. So there you go.
Yes. Those guys, yeah. They can be a good time with them. It's funny because our meetings won't start until we're like a bottle in, because other than that, we're just in a room quiet, the three of us. Nothing's flowing. A bottle in, everyone has ideas after a bottle in.
Yeah, that's when the creativity gets going. That's 100% true. If you're involved in any soccer club or political group, whenever you have these long, boring committee meetings, and then everyone piles into the pub afterwards, and that's when the real decisions get made.
Exactly right.
100%. Oscar says, "Good stuff. I'll track you down when I make plans to go to Oaxaca, or I can never pronounce it. So there you go."
I can share my email on here, guys.
If you want to type that in before we finish, that's a great idea. And to anyone else, if anyone's got any questions that we missed or any follow-up things, if you send them on to myself or Julie, who sent you on the Zoom link, I can forward them on. And there's the email in there. Brilliant.
That's the wrong one.
That's actually the wrong one. So make sure to email that one.
Yeah. Because Misael is my full name, but they have mine under my short name. Misael@mezcalosjavis.com. Yeah, if any of you guys need, if you guys make a trip to LA or Mexico, please reach out. I would love to host you guys. I actually own a bar here in Los Angeles as well, and I'm opening up a restaurant soon. So if you guys ever come out, I'd love to host you at either one. And then if you go to Mexico, let me know as well. We'd love to host you at the Palenque as well.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Marvelous. Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you for everyone who joined. It's been a fantastic evening. And we must do it again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you guys.
Bye.